Good morning, everybody. It's Ben Jones from Batdorf and Bronson Coffee Roasters, hanging out live in the coffee workshop again today. Today is the first day of March. It's Monday morning out here in the great Pacific Northwest. It also happens to be Monday morning in many other places in the world. Anyway, Monday afternoon back east in Atlanta for our Atlanta folks. Today I want to make just nice, easy pour-over coffee, but I want to set aside all of the gear that I have. When you've been doing this coffee thing for a long time and competing in different coffee competitions, you tend to collect a lot of really fun stuff, and I have to admit, I get my hands on a lot of incredibly nice equipment that I don't expect all my friends, family, and co-coffee drinkers out there in the world to be investing in at the same level. So, what we're going to do, just simple pour over. I'm going to be using my Bee House dripper because I really like these little windows down here, because when it's sitting on top of the mug, I can see inside to see what my water level is doing. The Kalita Wave and the V60, which are fantastic brewers, they don't have a little window into the soul of the coffee, so when I have this sitting on top of the mug, I can't see the water level in the mug, which is going to come in. It's going to be crucial because we're not going to be using scales for this one. Now, if you happen to have one of the brewers that has the solid base where you can't see in, instead of brewing into your opaque diner mug, you're going to want to go ahead and get a clear container. You can use a mason jar is a great option. Something that you want to have at least the same volume as your mug. So I'm using a diner mug, 10 ounces to brew. So I would want to get a 10-ounce minimum diner mug, or not diner mug, mason jar, or I happen to have here a little beaker with gradients on it, so a little graduated cylinder kind of measuring thing. All right, so I did go ahead and I'm heating my water in my gooseneck only because that's the heater I have out here in the workshop. But let's start with our coffee. Let's get some of that ground. So the one piece of coffee equipment I am going to use is my grinder. That's just because I don't have pre-ground coffee in the workshop. All right. The scoops. This is a classic coffee scoop. It's 2 tablespoons, and this specific geometry is designed in such a way that it works well for whole bean as well as can pour a bunch into here. It's designed to work with whole bean as well as ground coffee to get a reasonably consistent dose of coffee, whereas using your kitchen scoop, you would just want to, I would check it against the scale if you get the opportunity. But for this, I'm going to take, if I'm doing whole beans, 1 scoop, just a little bit over the top, nice and full. I'm going to put that into my grinder, and that will be enough bean for about this much coffee. So you use generally 1 scoop for every 6 ounces of beverage. Since I'm doing 10 ounces, I want to get another scoop, just a little bit less full. Now, keep in mind, coffee beans are larger than the ground particles, so this amount of whole bean coffee, after I grind it, the ground pieces will sit a little bit lower in here. So if you're using pre-ground coffee, I would do 2 scoops, just a little bit under the top. Now, pardon me, I typically try to avoid grinding on camera, but since we scooped whole bean, I have to do that, so pardon me. While I grind, I'm going to transfer hot water into my tea kettle. Now, if you've been watching the videos for a while, you know that I like to use a targeted 19 grams of coffee. Using the scoop, I actually ended up getting, I have a scale on my grinder, tells me what I dosed, and I have 23.5 grams. So the scoops are, they're easy, but if you're looking for extreme control, if you're looking for consistency, if you are looking to maximize the amount of the number of cups of coffee to get out of a 12-ounce bag, a scale is helpful, not essential, as we can see here. All right, so next step, I'm going to leave my scale over there and just go diner mug, bee house dripper, the Melita style filter that fits in there. This is actually a Melita brand because I really enjoy the Melita brand. I think their filters are consistent, impart very little taste, all that stuff. All right, so very important part is little rinsing of that filter. It helps to pin it to the wall of the brewer and preheats the mug and the vessel so we don't lose heat to the ceramic. All right. Now, one of the hazards of this kettle is the kettle does pour incredibly quickly. I can get a lot of water out of it very rapidly. So I'm gonna have to be careful when I do this. I don't have to be, obsessively, but just real simple. You can see, of course, the difference in the openings. The gooseneck, very small, limits flow, very large on them, but it's just what it is. All right, we have our wetted filter. I'm going to add my coffee to there. Excellent. All right, and then something helpful, if you have a timer, timers can be really helpful. I'm going to use a timer because we keep timers in our pockets on our cell phones. So we're going to use that. Also to help with retaining heat, keep the lid on your kettle. It also protects your hand from getting the vapor heat. All right, so pretty important part here. This, I don't know if you can see it. Let me get a light up here. The coffee is mounded. I want to just kind of give it a shake, just level it out. That's an important step. Start my timer, and I'm just going to add and try to trickle just enough water in there to get everything wet. It's a little splashy. Once I've done that, if you're feeling ambitious, take a chopstick, a skewer, something, and just give it a little stir. That will help to ensure that all the grounds were saturated. All right, and then from here, we're going to give it about 30 seconds to let that water soak in. I'm going to come back, and we're just going to just trickle in some water. We don't need to be worried about our precision. Just want to wet it, break up any of the dark chunks. So we now have just the nice, rich tan color, that kind of little bit of coffee foam that you get with a pour over. Let's do that. And then I'm just going to keep on coming back and just splash a little more water in and let it drain down. And from this point, there are two very important parts to remember. Because I'm not measuring how much water I'm putting into my cup, I don't want to overfill the mug. So, two things that I want to pay attention to. I want to look through here into the soul of the coffee, make sure that we're not overflowing. I also want to have a second cup or a sink handy so that when my drinking mug is full, I can switch this over to the other one. All right, the water level has dropped a little bit. Come back in, pour some in. Little spill on the countertop, not a big deal because I have a cloth handy. We will just give a little clean up there. Just watch down through the sole. Now here was a fun trick that a friend reminded me of. if you take that bamboo skewer or the chopstick, lay it right across your kettle spout, you can use that to direct your flow. So if you want to improvise a pour spout to get targeted brewing, that'll allow me to come in with a more gentle flow, and I can do near pinpoint precision right down that skewer. So that's an option. We're looking pretty good. Now, I have a lot more water in my brewer than I need to fill up my cup, so I'm gonna have to watch this and just make sure I don't overflow the cup. It's one of the nice things about using a glass is that you can then see how high it's going. So if you have a Kalita Wave, or if you have a V60, or if you have a vintage Melita cone where it has the solid base, just make sure you're using a glass bit. And then we have my very first pour-over brewer I ever bought. I've just picked this up at the grocery. This is just a plastic Melita cone, same basic design as everything else. Plastic, I think I paid $3 for it. It's great because I can drop it and it's gonna be fine. It's not gonna dent, it's not gonna shatter. Still use this, it's good, it's good. There's another one. This is the Bon Mac. It's the same basic design. Same thing we have, sits on top of the mug. This has a single hole in the bottom. You can see get some light in there. There we go, single hole in the bottom. And this one does have a little space right there to see in. There we go, my mug is full. I'm just gonna lift this up and I'm just gonna put it over in my other mug to catch. All right, so there we have it. The only real coffee specific equipment we used, ignoring the grinder, only of necessity of not having pre-ground coffee. I used my dripper. You can pick these up. They range, depending on the models, anywhere from, for ceramics and metals, anywhere from $20. So you can spend, 50, 60 if you want to get really fancy with some of the other brands. The Kalita Wave is a good little brewer. Or you can go out and spend, a few bucks on a plastic one just to get warmed up on it. The other coffee specific equipment used was, of course, the filter, which is a few bucks at the grocery store. Just make sure you get the filter that matches your brewer. I like to choose the oxygenated white filters, so they're whitened using an oxygen process, not a chlorine bleach. The oxygenation is a bleaching because it removes color, but those taste cleaner to me. That whitening process rinses out a lot of the loose papers, and I find that the brown filters tend to taste like paper grocery bags. I'm not a big fan of that. What I do like, though, is my coffee. Today's coffee is batter from Bronson's Guatemala El Valle. This is one of our long-time running coffees where people talk about direct trade. This is a coffee where our coffee buyer, Bob, knows the family, and they have a friendly relationship. They talk soccer and all kinds of things like that. So it's one where there's a mutual respect, understanding, appreciation for the craft and care that goes in on both sides of the coffee. So they do the best they can to grow it. We pay them what is needed to help them grow it, and then of course we'll roast it and pass it on to you. Thank you for joining me the first day of March. I will see you back here on Friday, where we're going to talk about some of the keto elements of coffee. It's been something I've been hearing quite a bit about. So, cheers. Fine cup of coffee.